Well, good morning. Good, you're responsive. That's always a good start. Just helps me feel that little bit more relaxed, and I'm going to help you with that in just a minute. So you've heard a little bit about me. My name's Daniel. I'm a father, a husband, a principal at a primary school, a Christian man, and I try to keep all of those things together at once. And sometimes it's hard, sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. But I'm here today to share a bit with you about that. So I thank you for the opportunity. So I'd just like to begin with a clarity of mind prayer for me more than anything else. So if I could just begin. Father God, I thank you so much for this opportunity to share your word with these people here today. And I just ask for your peace in my brain and my mind as I bring a message that I feel comes from you and that I can share through you, and that your words might be my words and help me to add something to people's lives today. Amen. Okay, so yeah, I do a fair bit of public speaking in my role as principal, and I've done a whole lot of different things in the background of my career that has involved public speaking, but I've never stood up and done a message at a church. So congratulations, you are my first group. Be gentle. Oh, thank you. Thank you. I appreciate it. But it means that a lot of what I do is going to be, this is how I do stuff. So you need to be willing to be prepared to be part of that, which could be a bit like I'm being a teacher. So I'll be careful not to be too teachy. But first thing I would like to do is I'd like to tell you a bit about me, but I'd like to find out a bit about you, because it's always good to know who I'm speaking to. And there's going to be a few times throughout this that I'm going to ask you, not necessarily to speak to each other, because I know sometimes, I sit there and go, oh, yep, okay, and you might not be like that. I know I sometimes do. And also, about 10 minutes in to most sermons, I get a nudge in the ribs where my wife just checks that my eyes are thinking and not sleeping. So if that happens 10 minutes into this one, you can just run up and nudge me. No, that would be weird. Okay, so first slide, please. So I'm going to tell you about myself, and I want to find out how like me you are. So the focus for today is a Christian in the workplace. We've talked about that already. So I forgot that was the first slide. That's the one. Okay, so I am at Croydon Hills Baptist Church this morning. That's what I am. If that's just like you, you have to stand up and you have to say, just like me. Nice work. There's a few people sitting down. So either they're not here or standing up can be a challenge. I know you've stood up and sat down for hymns and songs. So please, sit down. But you're going to stand up again if it's like you. So the next one says, I am married to a wonderful human. Okay, I'm just checking to see that couples stood up and there's not one sitting there saying, wait a minute, why didn't you stand up? No. Okay, please sit down again. All right, next one says, I'm looking forward to the football season. You got to say the just like me part. Okay, obviously the rest of you are Essendon supporters because Geelong had a great win last night or yesterday. Okay, next one. So I have a job that involves me leaving the house to work. Okay, so about 2/3, fair enough. This one's not like me, unless it's COVID time, but it is like my wife, so I made sure I included it in here. So I have a job that involves me working at home. Okay, so this is going to bring some thoughts and challenges about how we do faith in the workplace. If your workplace is at home, or your workplace is with your family, or your workplace doesn't involve a lot of interaction with other people, but you're creating things that might involve other people. Next one. I'm in education. Ah, nice. Quite a few educators here. Okay, last two. I try to show God's love every day. Yeah, so that's the challenge. That is a challenge. Okay, every day is the big clincher there. Thank you. Sit down. The last one is going to tell me whether there's a point for me being here. I find it hard to know how to do that on most days. Okay. Yeah, good. Thank you. Okay, thank you for indulging me in that. One, it gets the oxygen flowing so that you're thinking and you're ready to focus. It does tell me a bit about who you are, and that's helped me get a good understanding of where we're going further forward. So the next slide tells us about me, because I'm a principal in a primary school, and pretty much any time I read a newspaper article about being a principal in a primary school or being a teacher in a primary school, there's a person, sometimes their head's down, sometimes they're looking pensively off to the corner, depending on what the article's about, whether it's principals are doing a great job or principals are in stress. But there's always a chalkboard behind them with the words ABC, with the letters ABC, or there's always some blocks that say ABC. This has obviously got everything to do with education in the public persona. So ABC, they're the building blocks. But I thought for today's message, I'm going to use ABC as the three things I'm going to talk to you about. So I'm going to talk about A, B, and C, and I'll get to what those stand for very soon. So I'm going to go with the stereotype. As I've said also, I'm a principal, I'm not a preacher. I haven't been to Bible school or Bible college and done a lot of work through that, but I have spent 46 years as a Christian and done a lot of reading and talking and engaging with people over that time, and deepening my understanding of where I see being a Christian, witnessing to people in my life and through my life, and that's what I want to share with you today. So I'm going to be going through some concepts and some ideas that I'm sharing with you. It's not expository Bible preaching. I will use Bible verses. I'm just saying that because I know when I was speaking to Ben, you guys don't do this here either, but there's a lot of places that like, I've got a message, so I want to tell that message, and then I'm going to pick bits from the Bible that just back me up. I don't want it to be like that, and I'm going to try really hard to show you that what I'm talking from today is mainly from James, and James is a great book written by James, the brother of Jesus, and it focuses on application and putting your life out there as a Christian person and how to apply that. So I'm going to be sharing from that as we go through. So the key verse for today is James chapter 1, verse 12, which is, "Be doers of the word, not hearers only, deceiving yourself." It goes on, and it says, "For anyone, if anyone is a hearer of the word and not a doer, he is like a man who looks intently at his natural face in the mirror. For he looks at himself and goes away and at once forgets what he looks like." So you look in the mirror. Back then the mirrors weren't great when this was written, but you look in the mirror, you look at who you are, you get a good understanding of who you are, you walk away from the mirror and you completely forget. And I think that's a bit like what we're talking about when Ben was talking to me about where you guys have been through, and you've been working through what faith is, faith in action, what you stand for as a church, what your vision is, and how do you then put that in practice? If you've done all this work of looking at yourself and who you are in the mirror, and then you walk away, and as soon as you've looked away from the mirror, you've forgotten who you are, what your face looks like, and those characteristics of who you are, then you're listening on a Sunday, and you're walking away and you're forgetting on a Monday. And I know there are times in my life when I do that. There are times in my life when I do that on a Sunday afternoon. There are times like that when I listen to a podcast in the car on the way to work and walk out the door and it's gone. So I know that there are times when I look at myself, think about it, look pretty deeply even at myself, but then I walk away and I've forgotten. So be doers of the word, not hearers only. For a hearer is someone who looks in the mirror, gets that good sense of who they are, but then walks away and forgets completely. So we're going to move around a little bit too. We're going to hit some Matthew. We're going to hit some of 1 Corinthians. There's a couple of other things that, for me, make this really timely. I've picked James to talk with you about today because I'm actually meet up with a group of men every second Tuesday morning, and we go through some great books. And one of those books that we're going through today, at the moment, is the book of James. So we're going through the book of James together. So a lot of these things are fresh and things I've been thinking about. We've recently read a book called Being the Bad Guy by Stephen McAlpine, which is a great, really challenging book. It's more about dealing with big issues. It focuses around transgender and other things in the workplace and how we balance how do you be a Christian when these things are being asked of you, and do you stand up against them, or how do you do that? So that's a great book. And there was another book that we were looking at, how to talk about Jesus without being that guy. And that's one that, again, it's written by Sam Chan, and it's a great book about applying yourself in the workplace and in life. So these timely invitation to come and speak today has been great. So I'm going to put the next slide up, because the A is for act. It's what we do. And as Christians, we hear on Sunday morning, we go through about the Bible, we hear the word, there'll be certain things that we pick out, and usually there's a response. These are the things we should be doing. The Bible is a great instruction booklet. I've heard it my whole life. Look to the Bible, go to the Bible, it's all there. And the more and more and more I read it, and the more I learn about interpreting what's being said in there, the more I think, fantastic, I can actually apply that in this situation. Whether that's looking at an Old Testament story that has something that happened that goes, well, maybe I need to learn about that particular thing in my life and how it applies to me, the battle I'm focusing on, or whatever. I'll pause there with that thought. I'll go through that in a minute. But it's a great instruction book. It gives us lots of things to do. There are 10 commandments in the Bible. And one of the things I've picked out and thought about a lot with James, when I was reading with James, is that the 10 commandments: no other gods, no carved images, don't take the Lord's name in vain, remember the Sabbath. I have got these written down. I don't just rattle them off that easily, usually. Honour your father and mother, don't commit murder, don't commit adultery, don't steal, don't bear false witness, and don't covet. So 10 things that are really important things that you need to do or not do. But then when Jesus came along, he actually said, well, there's 2 main commandments. Love the Lord your God with all your heart, all your soul, and all your mind. And that covers off those first 4 of the 10 commandments. Put God first. Love God with all your heart, your soul, and your mind in all that you do. So don't have any carven images. Don't take the Lord's name in vain. Remember the Sabbath and keep it holy, because you love God. That's why. So that's the one most important thing. Second thing Jesus said is love your neighbour as yourself. And if you're loving your neighbour as yourself, you're going to honour them, whether they're your father or mother, or the family of Christ, father or mother, an elder in your community. You're not going to hurt somebody and commit murder. You're not going to commit adultery and steal from somebody else, because you're loving them like you love yourself, and you wouldn't do that to yourself. So you wouldn't do it to someone else. So that's from Matthew 22, and that's a key thing, that love the Lord your God with all your heart, your soul, your mind, and love your neighbour as yourself. And if that's your guiding principle, then you're going to be able to be a great witness. And a thing for me, being in the workplace, being a Christian in the workplace, that has challenged me over many years is, what's my role as a witness? And as I said, my faith grew most significantly in my late teens when I started doing beach mission. And we were there to witness. We were there to show people about God, and I thought we were there to tell people about God. And the thing I learnt pretty quickly was that bearing witness with people means you are showing them. You're not just telling them what you've seen, but you are showing people. And a clincher line for me was when we had 65 people on a tiny little site at Wilson's Prom. Well, it was big, but it wasn't big enough for 65 people. And we were, as a team, providing activities for kids, running games like those ones that you saw up there. Not quite as amazing, I don't think, but that was a pretty phenomenal camp. But we were doing all sorts of things, and somebody came up to me and said, you guys are doing a great job about showing God. I'm learning about God. And I said, oh, that's fantastic. Which of the activities have you really enjoyed? because it was an adult, and they did parent groups and stuff. And they said, no. I see 65 of you living in a site for 35 for 2 weeks together in the rain, all of that. And you are joyous, and you are together, and you are collaborative. You are showing me God. And that's when, for me, it struck me that actually I show people God through what I do every day. And that's my opportunity to witness. That's my opportunity. And my testimony to people is through my life. A testimony can be a great story. It can be a great message to share with people. But I have every opportunity in the way I act and do what I do that witnesses to people. And some things are big things, like I'm a teacher, I taught science. I realised pretty quickly I didn't like science too much, but I was teaching science and I had to teach evolution. I don't believe in evolution, I believe in a creator God. So how do I teach evolution if I believe in a creator God? There's a compromise to be made, essentially, other than the fact that evolution is only a theory. So I will teach it as a theory, and I will say, when I'm teaching it as that theory, this is a theory that some scientists have come up with. Personally, I don't think that's the way it works. But I work in a secular school. I've always worked in secular schools, and it's quite important to me that I work in a secular school, because being able to have little lines like, well, this is a theory, let's put some perspective around this. That's this is a theory of evolution. I am a Christian man myself. I'm going to teach you the theory. I'm going to teach you the science behind the theory. But I'm also going to say that there's an alternative view. I'm not going to tell you about that because it's a secular school. I'm not able to do that. But I have a stance where that's a theory that I'm not going to go into too much. I also now, I don't know if you see these emails, but Department of Education are really promoting putting pronouns in every time you write your email. You have to put your pronouns in so that you're saying Daniel, he, him, which is about gender identity and all the. And for me, there's a little bit of, I don't need to go there. I'm comfortable in my identity. I don't identify myself by my gender. That's not who I am. I'm a Christian man. I'm a child of Christ. I don't identify myself by my pronouns. I'm not going to go there. And spreading a little bit of positive deviance around in my workplace. I have the luxury of being a boss rather than a worker, but I do have people above me. And there's been times when I've had to go, well, what do I do? What are the things I do that make sure I am loving my neighbour and honouring God and loving my God in all that I do, everything that I do? So there's just little bits. I'm not going to be able to give you lots and lots of example. One, you don't need to hear that from me. Two, you're not in my workplace. You're in your workplace. And so it's going to be very different for you depending on where you're working. But that idea of what is it that I do that will show my love for Jesus, show my love for God in my actions is where I wanted to start today. One of the things as well that I do make sure I do, not too many do's in that sentence, I work at a school which has a pretty low socioeconomic cohort of kids. They have a lot of trauma in their background. They have a lot of family struggles in a lot of the families. We have some great kids, but a lot of them have struggles. A lot of families do, a lot of families don't. But the percentage-wise, high level of struggle. If I was to show partiality in my role, I could very easily look at the behaviours of the kids and go, oh yeah, your behaviour's not great, but I'm going to respond to the behaviour. If I can see the person behind the behaviour, I look to the person, that's what I'm showing love to. I can work through the behaviour and I can keep that in my mind. I'm working with a person. I am witnessing to this person by the responses I'm making. The James verse that I talked about goes on and talks about if a man comes in and he's got rings on his fingers and gowns, where do you place him in your church? And then the beggar person comes in, where do you place them in your church? Are we showing partiality to people? So real just nuts and bolts. How do you interact with people? Are there people that you look to, you gravitate to, you work with, that you are liking or not liking? Showing disdain is too strong a word, but you're showing compassion to these people because I feel that I'm not going to show compassion to those people in what I do. So doing what we do is really important, but the line that the verse says, be doers of the word, not hearers. Be doers, not hearers. And we're going to move on to that in just a second. The next slide has 5 hands on it. Okay, this is the teacher part that comes in. This is called fist to 5. So you don't have to stand up this time, it's okay. If I'm going to say a sentence, you're going to put your hand up either with a fist or a number of fingers up to 5. If you can put 6 fingers up with one hand, I'd be surprised, but I'd be interested. But 5, fist to 5. The sentence that I'm going to say, you just have to hold it up. You don't have to say anything. You don't necessarily look around. This is just get a bit of a gauge. How easy do you find it to act in the as a Christian in the workplace? How easy do you find it? Do you find it totally impossible? Or, man, my workplace I can sing praises every moment as I walk around the day and no one will bat an eyelid because it's just where I live. And for some people it is. Some people who work in a church, maybe that's what you do. I don't work in a church. I'm sure they walk around singing praises every moment. So, ready? So put your fist up, 0 to 5, go. Okay. This is the challenge. You've just put a number. I've made you commit to a number. That's the point of doing this. There were some 0s. There were some 1s. There were some 5s. Fantastic. There were some 3s mainly. The question I'm going to ask you to think about as we're going through the rest of this is, what would it take to change that 0 to a 1 or the 3 to a 4? Or if you're rocking it at a 5, how can you share that with somebody else? Who can you partner up with and start going, hey, I'm doing this. Can I help you with something because I feel like I get it? Or is it just your workplace? Feel lucky. Second thing, this is more feedback for me about whether I need to work harder in what I'm saying. So don't put your fist up till I say it. But as soon as I say it, put your fist up because I want to see your gut response. Okay? How strongly do you agree that you witness through actions more than through words? Yeah, nice. Good. We're on track. Some people think 3, 4. Be interesting to pull that out a little bit more. Again, what do we mean by that? So I'm going to get to the next bit now, which is about being a doer. So the B is B. Yep, B is B. It's who we are. Who are we being called to be? And doers don't just do. The Pharisees did. They were able to say, I follow the law. I do these things. And Jesus called them out on it. Sermon on the Mount, and he was saying, in Sermon on the Mount, Matthew 5, he says, you say don't murder, and you don't murder. Good job. But that's not what it is. If you are having an angry thought about somebody, but you're not acting on it, well, you're still having that angry thought. So who are you really? And what's going to come out of you if who you are is somebody who is thinking angrily about another person? If you're not going all the way and committing adultery, congratulations. But if you're having lustful thoughts about other people, where are you going there? What's going on inside you? Who are you? And that's the B part. That's the part that takes this to the next level. Being the Christian in the workplace, we are often able to do the things that are Christian things. Sometimes we struggle when we're asked to do things that we would say go against what we've heard on the Sunday morning. Maybe you've been asked to do something dishonest, or if you're in sales, it's spin this or whatever it might be. But if you're only focusing on what you're doing and not who you are, you're going to get into some grief. So for me, it is about who I am, the decisions I make, the values I show people in the conversations that I have with people that help me to be the salt and the light that Jesus talks about being when in the Sermon on the Mount. In Matthew 5, he's talked about the Beatitudes and he said, here are all these list of things that if you're meek, the meek will inherit the earth and all the Beatitudes. Then he talks about being the salt and the light. And not only does the salt preserve and the saving element of salt, but salt enhances flavour. So how are we as Christians in our workplace able to enhance the culture in our workplace? How are we able to enhance the lives of the people that we're working with? By listening, by leaning in, by showing that we care, that we're not showing partiality based on who they are, that we have at our core God's love. And the light is how do we get to show God's glory through what we do and give God the glory in what we do. I know that God has placed me at Kilsyth Primary School. I am not at Kilsyth Primary School because I have worked hard to get there and strove. It's one I've never really get right. But I'm there because God's placed me there, and I know I've tried to leave a number of times, and every time I'm back there. And God has work for me to do there, and I need to listen to that. God has placed you where you are, and He gives you opportunities where you are. And if you look for them, you can act on those opportunities to be that witness, be that person, show that faith. Whether that's turning the other cheek, whether that's being a servant leader. So acting, being part of a team, not being the boss. I work really hard at my job to not be the boss, to be part of everything I do, everything I expect others to do, to be part of that. That's really important. The notion of picking up your cross daily is one that I struggle with really, particularly in my family, because picking up your cross daily means dying a little, giving something up. In my work, I often am able to say, yeah, okay, I can see that. I can give a little here. I can give up a little. In my family, sometimes I get to be boss at work, and if I try too hard to be boss at home, it doesn't work well, and I end up having conflict because I won't give as much as I should. But if we see the person, not the behaviour, then we can show God's love. And the thing I want to get you thinking a little bit about here is if we're showing God's love, are we being tolerant of people? And often that's a word that people use. I'm a good Christian because I tolerate things in others. Jesus didn't tolerate. If you've got a pebble in your shoe and you're on a walk, you might tolerate that pebble in your shoe while you're walking. Tolerating somebody is putting up with it even though you don't like it. And that's not being somebody who shows God's love. That's not loving the person. It's putting up with it. So in the workplace, how can we show love to people, not just put up with it? And that's looking to the person. That's seeing them as a child of God, in the image of God, and not showing partiality to them. It's listening with intent and being self-reflective to every conversation that you have with people. Because we have a privilege of proximity to witness. When we are showing God's love to people, we are going to be doing life really with these people around us at our workplace. So we're going to do another fist to five again. This time, it's a strongly agree, totally committed, really good. 5, yep, absolutely every time. 0, never. I don't even know why they bothered giving me a sermon on Sunday morning because I wasn't listening. I hope there's no zeros. Sorry, Ben, I hope there's no zeros. Okay, you ready? Most weeks, what I hear affects what I do. Most weeks, what I hear at church affects what I do over the week. 0 to 5. Okay, how much does it, keep your hand up. Does the number change if I add in 3 weeks' time? Does the number change if I add in 3 months' time? Because that's the challenge here. The challenge is not to go away and while that, I've looked in the mirror, I've looked at myself, I've heard the message, and it's changed what I do the next few days, but then it drops off. It goes away. That hasn't changed who I am. That hasn't changed what I'm striving to be, what I'm working with God and asking God to help me be in the workplace. And that's the nub of the be. If what you're hearing is impacting what you're doing in 3 months' time, then it's having an impact on your heart and it's having an impact on your life from a day-to-day basis. The C stands for confound. Confound, or confuse, but confound is nicer. The challenge that I want to set you is how do you confound people at work by being a Christian? Why we are who we are and do what we do. And I'm in a secular workplace. I don't get to go around and tell people I'm a Christian. I do wear a cross. It's the only physical sign that I wear. I do nothing else. And in fact, I'm not allowed to talk about my faith at school, particularly because I'm the boss. But I try really hard to confuse people, to confound them, to have them asking the question, why do you think that way? Why do you respond to that situation in that way? Why do you do that? Because I don't respond that way. Or I don't look at that problem or that puzzle as something that is an opportunity to learn, an opportunity to get to know somebody deeper, an opportunity to whatever the problem might be. But if people are asking that question, and I tell you, in 8 years at Kilsyth Primary School as principal, no one has ever asked me that question. They don't come to you and ask. But I know they are asking themselves sometimes. And you will find people that ask themselves, they wonder, what is it? Because people will say to me, I don't know how you do what you do, but they won't be saying, is it because you're a Christian? They don't make that link themselves. But they do see that what I do and the decisions I make in my role are different to maybe they'd make themselves. And they wonder about that. And that's that building a relationship closely with somebody allows me to lead them to Christ, but not necessarily explicitly. Because in Corinthians, and we're doing Corinthians as a book at Canterbury Gardens at the moment. So last week I was hearing and I'm like, wow, that's actually really exactly what I wanted to bring in here. Paul's writing in the book of Corinthians and he says, Paul, I plant the seed. Apollos waters, but God grows. I don't know whether I'm seed planting or watering, but I know that the growth of this person is God's job. He will do it. He will use me to plant the seed or to water a seed that's been planted. And that's what, for me, being a Christian in the workplace is all about. I'm watering or I'm planting seeds. So this next slide is a poster that I have up in my office, and it's how we do leadership at Kilsyth Primary School, because for a long time, the leader was the principal, and leadership meant the principal, and it meant that person. And you could almost look at this as Croydon Hills Baptist Church. How does your church witness to other people, and when? Is it the pastor's job? Do you have to be a pastor to do this? Do you have to, and at my school, do I have to be the principal to lead? No, because you lead conversations. Every conversation you have is an opportunity to lead somebody in our school as a teacher. You are leading change. You lead our culture. It's a school setting for me. We lead learning. In your business, It might be you lead whatever it is that your business is doing. But that's what we lead. There are opportunities to lead all the time. There are opportunities to witness to people all the time. If you just think that you lead conversations, you are witnessing through how you're saying it. So that's what we lead. How we lead is we lead by example. We lead through action and we lead with intent. Same thing about showing witnessing. If I am trying to do it by example and I'm trying to do it in my actions and I'm doing it with purpose, I am showing it through my intent, then I am able to witness God's love intentionally and actively. And who do we lead? We lead ourselves. We witness to ourselves every day. Don't forget that. In your workplace, how did you handle that? Be a little bit reflective. We lead ourselves and we lead others. And at my school, we lead our students, and together you lead your community. So it's a school example, but I just wanted to make that link to witnessing. And I'm about to finish, and I'm a little bit over, I think, where I'm going to be, but I hope that's okay. Because the C, whilst it could be confound, it could be get those people thinking, the final C really, I hope it's not too cheesy, the final C is Christ. Christ is why we are who we are, and we do what we do. And if we remember that I am showing God's glory to others, I am being a Christian in the workplace. This is where the teacher moment comes in again. Christian has a base word, Christ, and a suffix, Ian. Look at me being a science teacher teaching literacy. I'm amazed at how much I have to teach literacy to 6-year-olds being a chemistry teacher. I have other experts who do that, but I know base words and suffixes. Ian, as a suffix, means like, from, or related to. If you are a musician, music, Ian, then you are somebody who knows music, who shows music, who links to music, is related to music. If you are a Christian, then you are somebody who is related to Christ. You are somebody who shows Christ, who is like Christ. So to be a Christian, we're not just a follower, we're not just learning about, we're not just being within ourselves, we are like Christ. And what was Christ like? He was somebody who was engaged with his workplace. He was in people's homes. He was talking with people. And yes, he was God's son. He said a whole lot of explicit things, but he held true to who he was and he showed God's love in all that he did. He didn't pick these people to go and sit with. How easy he could have gone and sat with the Pharisees. Would have got the Jews on side brilliantly. But he sat with the sinners. He sat with the people who were difficult and challenging, and he got to know them. And through that proximity, he showed them God's love. So Christ is why we are who we are and we do what we do. But we fail. I fail often. And one of the things I've said already is the challenge of doing this in the workplace, doing it at home, doing it every time. There's going to be places where you need to reflect. And this is me saying, even now, preaching to myself, I need to do this better in so many elements of my life. And my home is one of those things. What I'm going to challenge you with is a final sort of teacher, sort of meeting thing. You might do this in your meetings. The last slide. No, one back. That one. Yep. So this is called plus delta. At the end of a meeting, I ask my staff, what's gone well? The plus, what was positive about this meeting? Delta, what has to change to make this meeting better next time? I don't want that feedback now. Thanks anyway. What I'd like you to do is I'd like you to think about yourself and think, what are you doing? What I've said to you now, I should have said this bit at the start. I already do that. Good. Are you doing it all the time? Are you doing it as well as you can? Is there any element you could improve? Because, even Tiger Woods, I used this example obviously for too many years because he's not the world's everything at the moment. But even Tiger Woods needs lots of coaching to change his grip this much or that much. So what is it that you're doing really well that you need to keep doing that plus in your life based on what I've said? That delta sign, that's the triangle is the Greek sign for delta. Delta in science, this is where I'll bring in the scientists back in. Delta in science means change. So what should we change? What do you need to change? What's one thing you can change yourself that will help you to, go to the next one, be the Christian in the workplace. Be the person that has the suffix that Christ is at the centre, because it will shine through you if you can do that every day. And be who you are, because you are somebody who follows Christ, who loves Christ. And be that in the workplace. Be the salt and the light. Act, be, and confound people. And consider just how explicitly you can put that suffix on Christ in your life. Just like to close in prayer. Father God, we thank you for the practicality that we find in your word. We thank you for the opportunity we have each day to bear witness to your glorious name, to be doers of your word, not hearers only, and to thank you that whilst we might plant or water, you grow. Help us, our God, to act, to be, and to confound those around us as they see you in us. Help us to be salt and light in the world, and may we, in all things we do, each day, bring glory to you. Amen.